So I've just heard from four speakers who have been incredibly optimistic, actually, about the prospects for Cyprus and Greece and the region in the coming years. And I guess many people listening might think that's a bit counterintuitive, given what's happened so far this year with COVID-19, and given that Greece and Cyprus are both facing a big contraction in real GDP this year, and that's going to reverse a lot of the gains that have been made in recent years, very important ones for Cyprus and Greece. In addition to which, as Minister Georgiadis said, we have Turkey as a factor of instability in the region. So when you take those two things together, I'm just wondering whether we need to temper our optimism a little bit. So I just wanted to come back to you and if you can tell me why is there this real sense of optimism despite these two problems, one with the economic impact of COVID-19 and then on the geopolitical front, Turkey's actions in the region. Is it about the liquidity in the system? Is it about the funds that are becoming available? Or is it, do you think that your countries are in a very strong position by virtue of the strengths that all of you really talked about, they're established democracies, political stability, geographical advantages, good operating environment for business and so on. So what's the cause for this optimism, which I think is something that we haven't heard in recent years, certainly in Greece. So maybe I can turn to you, Minister, first of all.
First of all, okay. I'll be very brief, but I think I will answer your question properly. I will take as an example from my answer what happened to Greece at 2020. This year started in a very good expectation. We were all very happy, reforms were doing, the stability was here, the economy was starting to grow up significantly, and then COVID-19 came. The first reaction of the markets and all of the foreign institutions about what would happen to Greece under COVID-19 virus pandemic was that Greece would be severely hit because of our state system, our health system, the age of our population. And for all these reasons, their first prediction was that in Greece there will be a chaos. We didn't cover any of this expectation. On the other hand, on the opposite side, we managed to deal with the pandemic within a very efficient way and proved ourselves much more efficient than most of the foreign institutions in the beginning thought. Then, when everybody started to recognize that Greece was handling the crisis of the pandemic in a very efficient way, they started to have very big agony and stress and very bad expectation about the performance of our economy. IMF had predicted that in the second quarter of 2020, Greek GDP would decline by 25%. And the first EU Commission predictions for Greece for 2020 was that Greece would have the worst performance of Eurozone. This happened early April. What happened in the real world? We had, of course, a very big decline of our GDP, 15.2% negative in the second quarter of 2020, but this was almost 10% better than IMF had predicted and 5% better than the European Constitution had predicted.
I'm posing the same question to all of you, actually. So let's just take each of you in turn in the order that you spoke. So Mr. Neofytou, what's your response to that? Is this optimism warranted and what's the basis for it?
Despite the economic impact because of the pandemic, and despite the aggressiveness of Turkey that you mentioned, we're still optimistic. Firstly, concerning the management of the pandemic, we managed to handle it in a very, very successful way. This created confidence to the ordinary citizens and to the society as well. Concerning the aggressiveness of Turkey, despite this factor, we expect that after the Turkish Cypriot community elections in October 11th, the Secretary General will call the parties for a conference for the Cyprus issue. So we believe that with the initiative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, things will be de-escalating in the region. At the same time, we believe that pretty soon, after the talks with technical committees among Turkey and Greece, a political dialogue will start with Greece and Turkey. And having in mind the fundamentals of our economy, we believe in a strong growth rate in 2021. Concerning the expectations of the recession in 2021, it will be less than 7%. We'll have a recession, but the result in comparison with other countries will be one of the good performance. We believe in the Cypriot economy, in the value sector, and again, we are optimistic for the good result in 2021.
Okay, thanks very much. So you're expecting a very strong rebound in 2021 in Cyprus. So we've been rejoined by Minister Georgiadis. So I'm going to ask you to carry on and maybe just pitch in another question. Obviously, Cyprus and Greece are very much dependent on travel and tourism, which is a sector which not many analysts think is going to be fully restored even next year. So given that dependence, how do you think Greece and Cyprus can adapt in this post-COVID situation?
Yes, it is a reality that our economy, is depending a lot on tourist industry. This year was a very bad year, even though we had better performance than many other countries that are competitive to us. We still were very, very low. We had some good news. TUI announced that they will continue to bring tourists until November to Greece this year, which was not always the case. We managed to open our borders with a safe way. But of course, if the vaccine will not come at late 2020 or early 2021, then for sure 2021 market will be severe damage. This is something that we have to take into account. But from the other hand, if you see all the fundamentals of our economy, our exports didn't influence at all by the pandemic. Our imports were much less. The liquidity in the market is still strong, and the banking system is now more steady than it was before. So we think that if the vaccine comes, we'll have a big rebound 2021. But this is something that will influence everybody. It will not influence just Greece or Cyprus. If the vaccine doesn't come, then for sure European institutions will have to find extra funding for the next year because all European economies will have problems. If the vaccine comes, and a very fast rebound will come to our economies, and I think both Greece and Cyprus, I will talk all for Cyprus because I love Cyprus. I cannot hide myself from that. It's difficult for me to differ from Greece. And to be honest, I like Mr. Neofytou very much. He's one of my very good friends in Cyprus. So I'm sure that both our countries will have a very good rebound if the vaccine comes. I have no doubt about it because our reputation during the pandemic is better than it was before. And for Greece and for Cyprus, it's the same issue. Cyprus dealt with the pandemic extremely well all this year. So since many thought in the beginning that our countries were not so efficient enough a comparison to other European countries, and now we proved ourselves that we can deal with difficult problems, I think this better reputation will help our economy to recover faster in the future. I will give you a last example. Many funds now have put into their account how some countries dealt with the pandemic in order to see if this country is a country that they could invest. So suddenly Greece speaks now with people and investors that they never looked Greece in the past. And they come now because they were surprised how our country dealt with all this crisis. So I think at the end, the vaccine will come because this is something that humanity needs, and billions of dollars are being spent in research in this era. And when the vaccine comes, our economies will have a very fast rebound.
Thank you very much, Minister. So let me ask our other two panelists to give their thoughts on this. Mr. Evgeniou.
Well, back in April, in the lockdown, as PwC, we carried out, in cooperation with the Economics Research Unit of PwC based in London, an economic impact study to assess what would be the consequences for the Cyprus economy of the pandemic. At the time, we estimated that the recession in 2020, on the base scenario, because obviously everything depends on the epidemiological developments and what happens on the health side. But we estimated then that the recession in 2020 would be 7.6% under the base scenario. Now, perhaps that the recession in 2020 would be lower than that. In terms of 2021, and again, everything depends on the health situation, we expect a rebound, a growth of 7.6 to potentially 8.7%. Now, those two numbers taken together indicate that Cyprus will have a strong rebound and will get back to its situation pro-COVID by 2022, and starting from a much stronger position as a country compared to what we had in the financial crisis. So, without repeating the very good comments and points made by Mr. Georgiadis and President Neofytou, that what gives us the confidence, and that alongside with all the reform measures that are underway in Cyprus, the opportunity of the EU recovery fund that would drive, we believe, competitiveness in the economy. And I take very well the point made earlier that obviously there are investors already based in Cyprus, and it's those investors that are seeking to take advantage of those opportunities and drive economic growth going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
Yes, very, very quickly, because I know we're at the 9:15 hour. I would just say that, all three of these countries we're discussing have a long history of many, many more difficult challenges that they have successfully emerged from. And then all three will emerge from this one as well. You have to remain optimistic always. You can't be pessimistic. You can't live life. You can't have a successful career if you're always pessimistic. So you have to be optimistic. These are some of the most innovative and intellectual countries in the world. And I'm convinced that all of us will pull out of this, but I'm convinced that these three countries will pull out of this crisis even sooner than many of the countries around the world. So we have to continue to remain optimistic.
Thanks very much. So just some final questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. So I share that view of absolutely about the resilience of Cyprus and Greece through all the recent travails that they've had to go through. So, resilience that's demonstrated in their democracy and also in terms of their populations and their commitment to democracy, despite everything that's they've gone through. So yes, there's reasons for optimism. So, but I wanted to turn now to really talk a little bit about the opportunities and the kind of project pipelines that you see in the next few years coming from the EU funds. Obviously, October is the month where countries are expected to present their proposals and plans. So it would be good to hear from the Minister and from our other panelists about what's in prospect for Greece. And are you confident about the absorption capacity of Greece and Cyprus, your ability to actually absorb these unprecedented funds that in theory will be available to you in coming years? Because as we know, that's been a problem in the past, and the sums that we're talking about are huge. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what to expect in this pipeline.
Okay.
Minister.
Thank you. First of all, I have to tell you that since the leaders decided this recovery fund, the Greek Prime Minister established a very concrete team in his office to start producing a national plan how to absorb all this money, because you're totally right. This is a unique funding, and the, the, the agony, if we can really absorb all this money on time, is real. In order not to lose not even a single euro, be very efficient, even during August, all the ministries, and my ministry and all the ministries, fixed some very concrete plans.
So, Mr. Neofytou, maybe I can turn to you again to step in.
We were very confident that we will absorb the funds from the recovery fund. We have a past record here, John, in Cyprus of absorption of the funds and from horizontal programs in Europe. So we are pretty sure that we'll get the money for the project, that we'll use it for the green economy, and also to make the necessary reforms that will be good for the ordinary people, and also to increase the competitiveness of our economy. I will add and conclude that, dear participants, we in Cyprus, we are used to crisis, and we turn the crisis, these big challenges, into opportunities for our country. We proved it in 2013, we prove it again in this pandemic crisis.
Thank you. So we'll wait for the Minister to come back, but maybe the other two panelists, just to throw in another question. I mean, we've heard just very positive statements by the two speakers from Greece and Cyprus. So, our Minister, you're back. I'm sorry you were cut off again. Did you want to finish what you were saying?
I'll be very brief. We have a very concrete plan. Until the end of October, we will show to the Greek people and to the European authorities logistics, renewable energy, industry, agriculture, R&D, and reforms are the main places that we're going to fund through the recovery fund, and combine all these plans with the ordinary European funding in order to achieve the better result we can. So even though I recognize that you can have some doubts about if we could absorb all this unprecedented money for Greece, I will tell you officially here, have no doubt, our plan will be very concrete and will persuade everybody that the Greek government knows exactly what we want to do and how we'll achieve our goals. So we will deliver, have no doubt about it.
Thank you very much, Minister. So, Mr. Evgeniou and Mr. Stewart, maybe just to finish off, rather than talking about the funds and the opportunities there, maybe you could tell us what you would prioritize in terms of the operating and business environment in Cyprus and in Greece, because obviously there are defects, there are deficiencies, not everything is perfect. So just from your perspective, what do you think should be the priorities of the government in terms of improving aspects of the operating environment to attract investors and to keep existing investors happy? Mr. Evgeniou.
Well, thank you. Well, let me just very briefly say about the previous questions, because as PwC, we won the mandate. It was actually from the European Union. We were the advisors of the government of Cyprus on the long-term strategic economic plan for the country. So in that context, by extension, I'm aware that there is a lot of work actually being done as we speak by the government to be ready with its plan in October. And as President Neofytou said, there is a very ambitious reform agenda that will drive competitiveness and productivity in the economy and will create opportunities for investment. Now, beyond that, I mean, clearly there are a lot of things that we can improve, and there is the willingness to improve. And I would say primarily for investors want to have predictability. And Cyprus provides a very stable environment in terms of the legal and the tax system, but we have some way to go in terms of reducing red tape, bureaucracy, and personally I believe that would come about once we embark on a very ambitious digital transformation, particularly in the public sector, for processes to be seamless, predictable, without having to go to multiple authorities for licensing. But that is a problem faced, we have to admit, by many countries. And Cyprus, and I suppose Greece, is not an exception. But we have governments that are aware of this and are working to improve it and are listening to the concerns of the business community, of the investment community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart.
Clearly, both governments need to prioritize tourism. When it's 18%, I think in Greece, 18% of your economy, you need to prioritize that in any scenario. So that has to be one for Greece. Clearly, energy and healthcare are two other very big areas where we anticipate strong growth and opportunities to do business in both Greece and Cyprus. But I'll reiterate what I said in sort of my opening remarks, which is that I think this government, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the call, Adonis, but this government really has set the right tone for doing business and really the mindset for all Greeks is that we're going to work hard and we're going to work efficient and we're going to be successful. And so I think that mindset needs to continue on in order to remain optimistic, as we talked about in our previous questions. But I would also, again, from my opening remarks, encourage both governments to really think about how we can do more with the United States. I mean, I won't even get into the China issue because that would be a whole other hour conversation. But really, how can we double down on the relationship with the United States, which is one of the most important relationships for Europe? And while we've been trying to do TTIP for 30 years, let's find ways to be successful. Maybe it's a stripped down proposal where it's only zeroing out tariffs. Let's find a way to do more business together. We are each other's most important entities anywhere in the world. We're each other's best friends. We need to find a way to do more business together and bring our relationship closer together so that we can continue to be strong and successful.
Just a moment, Eric. We will surprise you in the months that will follow about how many American investment projects will be done in Greece. And last Monday, Ms. Adam Boiler from DFC was here with a very, very big delegation. We had already the first deals for the shipyards. They will participate in the tender of the ports and much more. And yesterday with Secretary Pompeo, I signed a deal about R&D investment, US investments in Greece. We will have some extremely good news, not in the next stage. There will be the official announcements with big US investments here in the R&D sector. And I can reassure everybody that this is the time for US investors to do business to Greece. Have no doubt about it. And today, Secretary Pompeo with our Prime Minister in Crete, they had a fantastic meeting there, and now our relationship is better than any time in the past.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Minister, I'm bringing a mission.
Sorry, Mr. Stewart.
I'm bringing a mission in December with American companies. It'll be
great.
All big companies.
Okay, so we are going to end on an optimistic note. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time for this panel, so I'd like to thank all of you very much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, all our speakers. We really appreciate the time you've taken to join the event today and enjoyed very much your presentations.